A secret Sony showcase was just announced. Is Sony cheating to win the game sales race? Sony just made the right call, but you're not gonna like it. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to PSReady. This is the weekly news show where I dig around the entire internet and find the 5 biggest news stories from the world of PlayStation. First up, we have to talk about Spider-Man because the numbers are in and this thing is selling super well. And if you're sitting there like, what do you mean? Spider-Man came out like in 2017. I bought it twice already. I bought Miles Morales too. I'm talking about the PC version. It just launched last week. It runs great. It looks amazing. It runs great on Steam Deck as well at 30 frames per second at original and high settings. And so far, it is Sony's second biggest PC launch ever, only trailing behind God of War. So I actually wasn't going to pick up this port at launch because I bought every other PlayStation port. I play them for an hour or two and then bounce off pretty quickly because I've beaten all these games on PS4 and PS5. I actually have the platinum in Spider-Man, so I wasn't totally into the idea of going back and playing Remastered just yet, but after watching the Digital Foundry video and seeing how much better this game looks on PC than PS5 if you have the hardware to support it, I had to pick it up and jump back in. And with my 3080 laptop, I am running this thing at some really high graphic settings and it's been awesome so far. So a lot of people were having this conversation back when God of War launched, but a lot more people are having it now. Sony definitely should focus more on PC, and they clearly are. Not only has their website been updated to have a whole landing page for upcoming and current PC games, they've also been hiring on the back end for someone to make a PlayStation app for PC, and people have even found files within Spider-Man that hint that Sony is going to allow us to log into the PlayStation Network sooner rather than later in these games, and hopefully, fingers crossed, transfer my saves between the PS4 and 5 version and the PC version. Now, the conversation here started out as whether or not Sony's going to have their own launcher, which I really respond like, get with the picture. We've been talking about this for months now, that Sony is definitely going to do this, but then it sort of evolved into whether or not they're going to force you, like Xbox does, to use that launcher when you buy these games to have save transferring. And honestly, unlike with Xbox, if that was the case, I would start buying my games through the PlayStation app just to get that save transferring feature, because I like to travel. I go home to Michigan all the time. I go on other trips with my fiance back to Chicago. I bring my gaming laptop and my Steam Deck, and having the ability to bring my save along with me would not only be great if I could buy the game once and get the save to transfer between both PC and PS5, but also the game as well. But it's honestly such a killer feature that I would really be open to buying these games twice. I thought this was going to be the future on Xbox, but not only have they really dropped the ball on having save transferring, but also their PC ports in general are super lacking. They run like crap usually when they come out. They take a long time to patch them. Like Forza Horizon 5, it blew up last year. It's the one everyone loves. As someone who's played all of the Horizon games, it's essentially the exact same game as Forza Horizon 4. There is like almost literally nothing different about it other than the massive map, and it still has all of the same performance issues that Forza Horizon 4 had that Microsoft never went back and fixed. On the Sony side, their worst port was definitely their first one, Horizon Zero Dawn, and they worked their asses off to get that port to a solid state, and they did a great job. And even better, every port that's come out since Horizon Zero Dawn has been near flawless. So as a PlayStation gamer and a PC gamer, I am super excited for the future here, and I think Sony is making the right move making these games come out on PC as well. I think they really got to get to the point though where they make these games come out at the same time, because Spider-Man capped out at around 100,000 users, which sounds great, like concurrently playing at the same time, but then you look at something like Elden Ring, which capped out at almost 1 million concurrent users at the same time, and you can really see how much releasing these games so much later hurt Sony in the long run, because Spider-Man is one of the biggest games of all time. This video is sponsored by Aura. Did you know you are 3 times more likely to be a victim of cybercrime than home burglary? And unfortunately, these hackers love targeting video game companies. Game devs and publishers are prime targets for cybercrime because they have a ton of online users, but they don't have to adhere to the same security concerns and regulatory demands as banks or hospitals. So you guys already know this, but I'm someone who loves buying one-off one-off horror movie Blu-ray releases, sometimes multiple copies. I also love buying used games and games that were printed a long time ago, but may not be available from reputable sources anymore. Literally 2 weeks ago, someone stole my debit card number off one of these websites and bought a bunch of gift cards with it. And that is why I'm excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura combines identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software into one easy-to-use app. So I logged into Aura myself, and right away you can see that my passwords and my email address has been leaked all over the internet. I went ahead and immediately started changing all my passwords. Protect your family and yourself online by visiting https://aura.com/PSReady. And if you use my link, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial, and you'll be able to see how many times your email and other information show up on the dark web. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Now let's jump back into the PlayStation news. Next up, we got to talk about one of the coolest and most disappointing demos of all time. Of course, I'm talking about PT. This is now 8 years old, which really, that one stings. That one got me right in the heart, imagining this game's 8 years old. Because I remember distinctly to this day, it was a rainy day in Detroit, Michigan. I was working my summer job at Staples, and I was rushing to get out of there so I could watch the Gamescom opening night stream because I thought Sony was going to announce some cool stuff, and lo and behold, they did. They dropped PT right then and there during this show. I played through that thing in one sitting, and I realized that it was teasing a new Silent Hill game from Hideo Kojima, which sounded absolutely incredible. Now, obviously, that game did not come out. Kojima broke up with Konami, or it was the other way around, and basically they removed PT from people's accounts, so you couldn't download it anymore. And if you had a PS4 that had PT on it, you could sell it for quite a bit of money on eBay. Now, a lot of the concepts for Silent Hills did make their way into Death Stranding, which honestly I think is a more original game than what we would have gotten from a Silent Hill game from Kojima, but still, it's not a survival horror game. So I would really love to see some way where this can be finished or at least evolved into something where Kojima is working on an actual survival horror game. I mean, the amount of survival horror games we're getting in the next year is absolutely phenomenal. We're getting Resident Evil 4, The Callisto Protocol, Dead Space Remake, Alone in the Dark, Alan Wake 2, which no one ever thought would happen, and I bet we'll get Resident Evil 9 sooner rather than later. Like, the amount of horror franchises out there that are coming back in an announced state is huge. And now we also know Silent Hill is coming back as well through Bloober Team and another studio. So yeah, survival horror is bigger than it's ever been. That's great. I want to see Kojima partner up with Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus again and finally give us this vision that was teased 8 years ago with PT. Honestly, survival horror is like my favorite genre, and it's been a really few bleak years only having Resident Evil to look forward to. So it's good to see that even if one of them trips and stumbles, there's going to be a million other survival horror games coming out that have just as much potential to be good. My bets are all on the Callisto Protocol. I think that one's going to be really impressive. Surely one of those survival horror games is going to get delayed and it's going to be disappointing, but currently there's an even bigger disappointment going on right now, and that is that the release date of Hogwarts Legacy has been revealed. I predicted that Warner Brothers would probably release this game this December no matter what, whether it was 80% done or 100% done. They were going to get this thing out there for the holiday season because it's Harry Potter, and this is one of those instances where I am happy I was wrong, because it was delayed from its rumored release date that we learned from an art book of December 6th all the way till February 10th of 2023. Now that's not honestly that big of a delay. It's only a couple months, so I'm crossing my fingers it's just for polish, and that when it does come out, it is 100% complete, and that Warner Brothers is not pulling a Warner Brothers and releasing this game unfinished regardless. But still, this is pretty disappointing because out of all the games coming out this year between The Last of Us Part 1, God of War Ragnarok, and Hogwarts Legacy, I think the sleeper sales hit at least was going to be Hogwarts Legacy. I know us hardcore gamers aren't super into the idea of an open world Harry Potter game versus something like God of War, but the general person out there is, and that's exactly why you're seeing this game come to Switch. But if you're a Switch gamer and you were looking forward to this game, you're going to be even more disappointed because they indefinitely delayed that version. We've actually been seeing this a lot, like Marvel's Midnight Suns, that got delayed as well, and the last gen version of that game was delayed indefinitely indefinitely, I think Sony really did kickstart people abandoning the PS4 by claiming that they're done making it. A lot of these developers are finally like, oh, we don't have to support this thing anymore. We're just going to indefinitely delay these older gen versions of these games and not commit the resources to making a 540p version that runs at 27 frames per second. So yeah, I guess while it sucks that a lot of people were looking forward to this game, the fall is actually shaping up to look pretty good between Modern Warfare 2, God of War Ragnarok, and The Last of Us Part 1. I know The Last of Us, I keep going back and forth on. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to buy it day one because it's $70 and doesn't have the actual multiplayer, but who am I kidding? This is one of my favorite games of all time. I will be there day one. So out of all of Sony's biggest franchises and best franchises, the one that's been the most poorly served, I think, by Sony has been the Horizon franchise. Back in 2017, Horizon Zero Dawn came out just a mere 2 or 3 weeks before Breath of the Wild, and it was completely overshadowed by the launch of the Switch and Breath of the Wild. And then this year, we got Horizon Forbidden West, and it was 1000% overshadowed in an extremely similar situation by Violent Breath of the Wild, which everyone knows as Elden Ring. The first game did go on to sell really well between Sony putting an expansion out for it that was actually pretty good, and also the myriad of sales it went on, and also the fact that they gave it away for free multiple times. The second one is probably going to have a similar thing happen, but Sony is doing some sneaky stuff on the back end to juice the sales of this game because it's actually skyrocketed to the top of the UK sales charts thanks to this trick, which is that Sony is only selling console bundles that come along with Horizon Forbidden West. Now, the issue a lot of people are having with this is that that bundle actually costs $50 more than a regular PS5 does, and so you're basically paying for a game you might not necessarily want. But I'm going to give Sony the pass here because just like with the first Horizon, even though this is kind of like a classic Ubisoft style open world game, fully including a Fortnite glider, or I guess a Breath of the Wild glider at this point, it's still a really damn good open world game. And Sony shoving it in front of people's faces like, here, try this out, I know you're gonna like it, honestly isn't the biggest issue in the world to me, because I feel like people wouldn't play this game otherwise, and it'll get the fandom it really deserves. Also, Sony doesn't really need to do trickery to boost the sales of the PS5 because literally every single one that comes off the line will sell within seconds of it becoming available. So this just seems like a smart move on Sony's part to take one of their best games that they've released for the PS5 thus far and include it with the console that people are buying to show them how good this console really is. Like, they had some graphical issues and frame rate issues when the game launched. Like, seriously, there was some crazy stuff going on with Horizon Forbidden West, but they've ironed those out and they've added in a lot of features in the quality of life department that people have really asked for since the beginning. So I feel like Sony deserves to be rewarded here instead of being like, oh, Sony's artificially juicing the sales of their game. They don't need to do that. They're just getting it in front of the people's eyes who would really benefit from playing it. Thankfully though, this will be the last Horizon game released on the PlayStation 4. The next one we're getting is Call of the Mountain, which is a PS5 exclusive in the way that it's coming to PSVR 2, which will not support the PlayStation 4. And then the final news story I have for you guys today is about the secret Sony showcase. And I'm gonna have to explain this one, so bear with me here. So just this morning when I'm filming this video, it was announced that Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, so I guess Lucasfilm, and 20th Century Games are having a showcase on September 9th of this year where they're going to talk about all of the different Marvel, Avatar, and Star Wars games we have to look forward to. Now, of course, a lot of people are assuming we're going to see some unannounced games, which would be awesome because there's a ton of rumors about a Mandalorian game that's been being worked on for a long time, on top of we've never seen the Indiana Jones game past the point that it was announced. So on the Lucas game side, I'm excited for that, and of course Jedi Survivor. But on the Marvel side, there's a ton of stuff to talk about between Midnight Suns, this rumored Iron Man game. Amy Hennig is supposedly working on a Black Panther game. There's also been rumors of a Daredevil game, so there's a ton of stuff to talk about there, but Sony is just overshadowing this entire event with two of the most anticipated games pretty much of all time, I gotta say, Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. Now, Insomniac has been working on these games for quite a little while now. Wolverine is supposed to come out well after Spider-Man 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Spider-Man 2 not get delayed out of 2023. So if it does stick with with that 2023 release date, September of this year is like the perfect time to have a coming out party for it and show us some gameplay from this new game. And if you're sitting there like, what could be really different in a new Spider-Man game on PS5? People have been data mining Spider-Man Remastered on the PC all weekend long, and they found prototype files that basically suggest that there was going to be multiplayer within Spider-Man 1. So if they were testing it for Spider-Man 1, and we've seen a trailer for Spider-Man 2 that features both Spider-Man Peter Parker and Spider-Man Miles Morales, it's basically a pretty fair assumption that we're going to have some sort of multiplayer component in Spider-Man 2, which seems pretty cool because this is Insomniac. I don't think this is going to turn into a live service or whatever, where you're going to have a bunch of missions that you can finish over and over again scattered around the New York City map. What I would assume is that there's some sort of co-op mode that's going to be similar to what we saw in Ghost of Tsushima Legends, or even a story where you can play it 2-player or 1-player, which honestly brings me back to high school when that was like the big focus with games like Dead Space 3, Fear 3, and every other game that was coming out around that time. So while I am excited for these multi-platform games that are supposedly going to be announced at this event, what I'm really excited for is to see whatever Sony exclusives are being worked on, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we get a third one announced from a different Sony developer. And honestly, with this happening September 9th, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony did an event of their own relatively soon after, or maybe even before, because every year since the PS5 was announced, we have had a big Sony showcase that's shown off some really cool stuff.